Players made some money over this week at the combine. Does that change Houston's free agency plans?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation from A Sound to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun show lined up today. This is a sneaky wide receiver class. And so for me, who I've been chastised and criticized a little bit, Houston don't need to add to their wide receiver room. There's some guys that I think can really help Houston out, especially with some of the juice these guys are getting out. Man. Some of these boys are in some 4 threes. They move and they skating. And Houston Texans could absolutely benefit from adding a wide receiver, maybe later in the draft where it makes sense. Should the combine and the draft change the free agency view? Right, this week you got players meeting with teams or meeting with the Houston Texans, and maybe the Houston Texans may fall in love with some of these guys. So we'll talk about that. I'll give my thoughts, but I think it's important to just look at who made money during the combine this week. I mean, I think you got some guys that maybe with some undrafted rookies can now be sixth or seventh round picks. You got some guys that were late round picks, day three picks that may jump up and catapult themselves into day two. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a potential day two pick get picked in the first round this year. Because each and every year the combine does a lot, especially with the pro days combined. They do a lot. You put what you have out there from an athletic profile. Teams are able to kind of scout you and see some of the things that you can do under pressure in an unfamiliar environment, in a familiar environment, your pro day, and some of these players, man. Uh, some of these guys stole the show. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into bigger potential wins with college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And I do want to shout out my everydayers from the Himalayas for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I know that the background has been a lot different over the past couple of days. I'm heading back home, but I wanted to share with you guys just my thoughts on who made money this week. And well, I mean, one guy that I think we're going to start to hear a lot more of. And I can't wait to do a deep dive on his film and tape for the bonus cover shows. Mike Washington, 4.340, 6'1", 223, 4.340 at 223 and 6'1". Freak of a running back, athletically wise, right? No disrespect to Mike Washington. Out of Arkansas, broad jump 10.8, vertical jump 39. This past year, you're looking at 72 zone run attempts compared to 90 gap runs in college, 17 carries of 15 or more yards, 3.86 yards after the contact. Washington absolutely made himself some money this week. He's met with the Houston Texans, and I'm being told those conversations went really well. So let's keep an eye out on that. But when I look at the position that really made them some money this year, is absolutely the wide receiver group. And I'm going to finish my thoughts on that, close out the show. But Jeff Caldwell, who had over 1,000 yards in 2024. His numbers dropped in 2025. I think really earned himself a higher draft stock with some of the things that he put together this past week. But the wide receiver group all together, Brennan Thompson out of Ole Miss, Mississippi State, excuse me, 4.240. Xavier Thomas, LSU, 4.28. Deion Burks, Oklahoma, 4.3. Jeff Caldwell, like I just mentioned, a 4.31. Zachariah Branch, that's a name that I really think could help the Houston Texans in later rounds, a 4.35. Right. Malik Benson, a 4.37. The wide receiver group really, each and every one of those players, I think, stood out in many different ways. They bring juice. Obviously, does the juice translate to the field? We'll have to see. But I think Branch and Malik Benson are also in that group of guys that, for Houston, late round picks this upcoming year at a position where they need some juice. They need some of these guys that can get open field and create some yak yards. Do they make sense? And look, for Houston, many are looking at the wide receiver spot and foregoing the thought of, in addition to that unit, that's irresponsible, especially early. But now with some of these guys in these 40 times, and you go back and watch the tape, now you're looking at a fifth round selection for some of these players with that burner speed downfield. And honestly, running back too. Like regardless of what the Houston Texans do in free agency this year, I think it'd be smart for them to invest in their running back room. If they don't get their running back that they absolutely want during the free agent period, whether it's by trade for David Montgomery, whether it's for Travis Etienne or Kenneth Walker, then maybe you look at them prioritizing the running back a little bit earlier. But if they hit on one of those running backs, especially I think of David Montgomery, pairing him with a Woody Marsh, I think Houston should still invest in that running back spot. Obviously, if you get Montgomery, now you're looking at instead of picking in the first or second round, maybe you pick in the fifth or sixth round. um, Houston has made it known that's a spot they are going to upgrade. And reports are they are high on a high end running back in this year's market. So we'll see. Houston could look at some of these players that's in the draft and absolutely fall in love with a back to help shape out the entire room. So the question is, should the Texans reroute their free agency plans based on what happened this week at the combine? I think that's a very important conversation to have. Why do I feel that way? Well, I'm going to talk about a lot more on the opposite side, but I think more so. So obviously, during the combine, you look at what the players put out there on the field in their t-shirts and shorts, right? And then you look at the testings and you look at the measurements, and you also look at wow. Um, and I think AJ Hoss is a perfect example of this. During the season, he played at this weight. Now he's playing and he's at this weight. So you look at the dedication to get their body right, their mind right. But I think what you really take away from the combine for these teams, aside from the testing, um, look at the character of some of these players. Character matters a lot for these NFL teams. And sometimes testing can be great, tape can be great, but the character is a concern. Sometimes testing is good, tape needs some, refining. They like the character, and so because of that, maybe we can find a role for this guy. Maybe on the back half of this draft, top of day three, if he's available, he's a guy that you know what. Maybe Frank Ross can get him right on special teams. Let's see what he does. Let's get him out there and find a role for him. Maybe we can have a sub package for him to get him out there on the field. Just many different ways, especially if the team just likes a player. And I think that that's when you look at who made money over the weekend, over this week. Did you test well? Did you knock it out the park? Was your 40 great? How was your bench? Those are all things to take into account. You're gonna love that. But when you meet with these teams, right, and they're asking you, take me through this play right here. What did you see here? Or, during your third year in college, you went through this up and down period. How did you rebound? What do your teammates think about you? They start doing this research. That's really where the money is earned, especially for some of these guys that are already projected to be later round picks. That's where they can make their money. But for the Houston Texans, I think it's important to talk about. Hey, should the combine period, pro day period, and the players that are coming out in this year's draft, should that change how they go about free agency? Stick around for more Locked On Texas talk. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up. You got an inbox overflowing with emails, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post, they go find them. If you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need a hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And also, Texas fans, college basketball season is about to go crazy. It's nonstop big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night from early tip offs to late night West Coast shootouts. there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into a bigger potential win with a college basketball parlay proof profit boost. Excuse me. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read, mix match spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Go safe, go bold, go big, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. Do whatever you want with it. Head to fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com. FanDuel, play your game over on FanDuel. Texas fans, let's make sure we continue to keep this conversation rolling. The free agency is here, so are we. From now until March 15th, go ad free to keep this conversation going on the Everydayer Discord club. Join the club at lockedontexans.supercast.com now through March 15th with promo code free agency, no spaces. Again, now through March 15th, join the Everydayer Club at lockedontexans.supercast.com. So it's important to continue with our conversation. Emmanuel Pregnon, Inez Cooper, Trey Zahn, and many others all have two things in common. They're offensive linemen who have met informally or formally with the Houston Texans. Obviously, Pregnon, who is in the lead of this bunch, would be a great addition at guard for Houston. But I mentioned those names because for Houston, the question about reshaping their interior offensive line too back too big to pass up, right? But that leads me to how Houston could view and how they should view this year's free agency after this week's combine, with pro days kicking off later this month. But with free agency kicking off on March 11th, the legal tampering period is March 9th. You can legally um, sign contracts on March 11th. My answer is to this question, like whether or not the combine and the draft should change how Houston views free agency. No, it shouldn't. There is enough skill talent in this year's draft to focus on upgrading their talent, and Houston should focus their free agency on getting the best offensive lineman possible. So when I view free agency, I view it as go get those veteran linemen. Go get those linemen that you don't need to necessarily coach up. They need to get acclimated to the city of Houston more than getting acclimated to playing in the NFL. And I say that because if this was CJ Stroud's first or second year, I'd be all for it. There are a couple of factors that we got to take into account. Number one, and maybe Cole Popovich has been the voice in that room to maybe make these evaluations, but aside of Arion Urshman, there has not been an offensive lineman drafted here to Houston since Nick Caserio's arrival that's been worth much. And that's not a disrespect to Juice or Jared Patterson because I think those guys have played serviceably. And I think that they will be some good depth pieces for when you need to break the class and call on them. They'll be ready. But have they been difference makers? Have they been a Pro Bowl caliber player on the inside? The answer is no. And I also want to make this point about some of the criticism for CJ Stroud. Since arriving in Houston, CJ Stroud has had to work with a young center and a first time play caller. From a communication standpoint, he's been at a disadvantage since 2023. They win another young play caller again in Nick Haley. Houston is not moving on from Haley. It would be very smart of them to invest in an anchor in the middle of that offensive line. You're not going to get that in the draft. So with all of these players and offensive linemen and players in general, with them testing as well as they've tested and as well as they will continue to test, that is great for another team that may be operating with less sense of urgency than the Houston Texans. And what I like most about this week is that just proves the point, right? For Houston, the money that they've restructured, take that money and put it towards the offensive line, making sure the communication and the ability to get to the second level consistently to help with the run game is there. And I'm big on, and yeah, I think Cole Popovich coached his ass off last year. He got the rookie to a point where he was playing some good football. He reshaped and revitalized Ed Ingram's career to the point where the market now for him is $15 million, which is crazy. Like, these are great things. That don't mean he has to do that year in and year out. Just because somebody's good at their job, don't mean you need to make him strong staff. Y'all know what strong staff is? Strong staff is the employee that the job constantly puts at a disadvantage. The job constantly puts in places to where they have to work extremely hard to make during their day job because the job know they can get it done. And that's unfair. The worst thing you want to be at your job is a strong staff. Because you know when you go in, it's gonna be some BS for the day. And for Cole Popovich, rotating left guard, you got City Snow out there. So excuse me, taking snaps. The ins and out of the center position. The rumor was Trent Brown was brought in to be the immediate right tackle, but because of injury, him having to ramp himself back up, that was a problem. So he had to deal with who's going to play right, who's going to play left tackle. Cut that out for 2026. Cut that out for 2027 and beyond. Get guys in here that make sense. If you do that during the free agent period. So this is what I do. You retain your in-house free agents, EJ Speed, Sheldon Rankins, Ed Ingram, if they view Ingram as a piece that makes sense to retain. I do get the feeling inside the building, Houston may feel like they can make another Holmes. They can make another Ingram, right? Or they can get the most out of another veteran lineman. Have that spending money be be create that spending money to be in race for a top center and available guards. Stay away from the offensive lineman from Cleveland. Take my word on this, and view the draft as young pieces to add with some juice that fits the needs of the team, especially with Kaylee having a full year under his belt. I think he knows what his quarterback can do at a high level, what his quarterback can't do at a high level, what his quarterback needs to improve on. But I also think he may know what the offense lacked in general. They have juice on the inside. No, they did not. Did they have a good running mate for Don Schultz? No, they did not. Well, those are two positions that the Houston Texans can improve on. Some of these young players, like I gave you the 40 time at the receiver spot. Uh, King and Sadiq, 4.340. What are you talking about here? Like, there's some guys coming out that with this coaching staff especially a tight end, the history that Nick Caley and Jerry Swiftowski have at coaching tight ends, they can get the best out of a young tight end early in his career, and that tight end could excel and skyrocket to the next level under their tutelage. So I like to draft for more so skill positions than D tackle. I like free agency for the vet. Closing out today's show, I do want to revisit is this a sneaky wide receiver class? So we want to talk about that before we end off today's conversation. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets. And somehow buying tickets to live games still feels complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There has to be a better way. That's why I use the Game Time app. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple. Whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into, you can see a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. Prices you see include all fees, so no surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Closing out today's episode, sneaky wide receiver class. I gave you guys the numbers. You have, let's see here. There were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. There were 10 receivers who ran a sub 4.340 or less, or better, excuse me, this year. None of which was a Makai Lemon. It wasn't a Carnell Tate, who people were very unimpressed with his 40 time. It wasn't a Tyson. I think Tyson was one off from having the best bench press for a wide receiver in combine history. And so the names that I'm throwing out there, these are not considered the top end guys, right? These are names that you will see that are going to be sprinkled out between day two and day three in many people's mock drafts. And so for Houston, we talked about this on the squad show. Adding a Mike Evans doesn't make sense to me. From a name standpoint, Mike Evans back in Houston 55 minutes away from his hometown. The story would be great, but where the Texans lacked offensively in the passing game last year was guys on the inside that can get open and get upfield and make a guy or two miss. Right? That's largely the reason why I like Omar Cooper, but I think he's going to be gone. Um, he's going to be gone, and I don't think he makes sense for Houston. Maybe not that first round pick unless he's available in the second round. We'll see how his draft stock continues to go up and down. I've seen Omar Cooper as high as top 17, and that blows me away. Shout out to Cooper though. At 6 foot, he's a slot receiver who does his damage from 10 and under instead of 10 and beyond. But what I'm getting at is the team in Houston, they need some playmakers that when the offense breaks down and your quarterback is operating in distress, your quarterback don't just always have to launch the ball downfield. He'll have some underneath relief from a player. And before y'all say it, because I know y'all gonna mention Tank Dell. Tank Dell is an outside receiver. Now maybe they look to move Tank Dell on the inside, given everything that he's gone through in the last year. And maybe because of Higgins and Higgins last year and how he played on the outside, maybe they view Tank Dell as more of an inside piece, especially considering he fit the role of an inside guy that can make a guy miss in open field and do damage underneath before getting yak yards and has the connection with CJ Stroud. That would make sense, but it doesn't mean you don't need to add to that room. It does not mean that. I don't think the Houston Texans should get to a place where they are not adding to the wide receiver room because when you do that, then you have moments of where at the end of the year and injuries are breaking down, you're counting on players that ain't played all year. You're counting on players that didn't really get an opportunity. You're counting on players that may have the same build of a Nico Collins, but he's not a Nico Collins. And so, what you absolutely need in those moments, you don't have a body to do that when everything else breaks down. That's a problem for the Houston Texans. And we have to get away from being at a stale state with this receiver room. Like nothing Hutchinson showed me last year warrants Houston not upgrading to get better talent in the room to maybe push him to be better, or maybe unfortunately, and I think Hutch had his career year, or maybe push him out the room. Nothing Jalen Noel showed, and I like Noel, and I think his usage was due to Houston needing a veteran receiver to do some of the things that they're asking of the offense. So, and I think that kept Noel off the field, but this room could always use some reshaping at the bottom. The top guys are going to be your top guys. And when I say this, don't take it the wrong way, but the injury concern there with that last concussion could put the Houston Texans in a space where maybe maybe they look to reshape the top in the coming years as well. So I think this is a sneaky wide receiver class. I see some guys in this draft class that has some real value between round 4, 5, and 6 that could compete when they get to Houston. And I love for Houston to take that route, especially if they look to trade back and maybe get some more picks throughout the draft. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode of Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until next time, brothers and gents, Texas fans across the nation, peace.